question about intuition in creating. On our way to the airport, we took a taxi. 3 people involved, me, my husband, and the driver. All of them are creators. As we are going, looking forward to our vacation, all of a sudden, thought came to my mind, we might have a car accident, and we might never reach to Tahiti. And knowing power of thought as well, no, I really wish for the best vacation we can have. 1 minute later, in the fastest line on the highway, there was a car stopped, and we were going 140 kilometers an hour. The car was sort of on the side. The driver started braking, and there was just enough space for our car to make it. So I was asking question, did I create it with my thought? But was it an intuition which came, and I tried to change it?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Jerry and Esther have had this conversation with one another hundreds of times through the years. Did I create that, or did I sense it? Mm-hmm. And the most important thing to hear about that is, first of all, there's very little difference in the two when you look at it from this point of view. Whether you created it or whether you saw it as an obstacle along your path, there's only one criteria that is really important. Is it something I want to participate in? Mm-hmm. And if it isn't something that you want to participate in, then that explains why you're having the emotion you're having when you're thinking about it. In other words, let's say that something is in the road and you're about to run into it, and you're tuned into who you are. Esther has this experience quite frequently, as they do so much driving across so many highways. And very often she will feel a keener sense of awareness come over her than usual. And she will take note of it, because she will realize that she's kicked into a higher level of alert. And while she doesn't feel fear or negative emotion, she feels intense interest. And almost every time that that feeling comes over her, she sees far in advance. It's sensing more than it's seeing. She's actually seeing things that are too far away to see. Mm-hmm. So then her impulse to slow or to exit or to change lanes is the dominant feeling that she has, and often she gets to witness what that was all about. She'll say, oh, well, that's what that was about, because many times she does not even know what it is about. So whether you created it or whether you are a vibrational match to it. Now, we're going to take a little time here, because this is a question active in everyone, and it's really worth taking the time to sort out in its entirety here, and it will be easy to do. You will all finally understand this once we've completed this conversation. So, when the first thing that we want to say to you, when you said, there are 3 people in this car, and they are all creators. So then we want to say, yes, but there is no random coming together of the 3 people in the car. How you are vibrationally active has something to do with why you are together. Why you are together as a couple has something to do with the vibrations that you've been offering. And when the 2 of you are focused, when the 2 of you are in your vortex, when the 2 of you are feeling wonderful, it would not be possible for you to attract yourself into a cab with somebody far off from who the 2 of you are. You like that? Yes. If you are in your vortex, and let's just say for sake of argument that your mate is not, for whatever reason, even though he's coming along for the ride, still, because of your in the vortex state of being, you would not attract a cab driver who was on his way to an accident. The universe just won't match you up with that. Law of attraction just will not match you up with that. So then someone might say, well, if he's not in the vortex, let's say he's really in an ornery mood, And I'm in the vortex, which means I've done some practicing. To stay in the vortex when you're with somebody who's in a really ornery mood is a sort of delicate dance, but you can do it. So the question really is how aligned am I to my vortex, or do I let what's going on in my environment set the tone for how I feel? So let's say in this example that you're with someone who is usually in their vortex, or usually wanting to be, who woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning and isn't, and you're in your vortex, you're feeling mostly good, and you're in that place of not feeling resistance or resentment that somebody that you're with isn't in the vortex. Instead, you're appreciating the fact that he's having a step one moment and you're not having a problem with that, and you're still maintaining your alignment. One who is in vibrational alignment with who they are is more powerful than millions who are not. So that's why we want all of you. It's the reason that we began here today as we did. We want all of you to realize that what's going on out there in the world really is none of your business. Even things that seem like impediments or obstacles along the way, they really are not any of your business, because the universe will not line you up with anything that is not part of your business. Esther, when she first began receiving us, she took quite a bit of satisfaction in getting some of those warnings. It was sort of pleasing to her that she was having near misses. It was sort of like, oh, I'm using my psychic ability to save us from disaster. But after she began learning about alignment and allowing, now she doesn't even want to see that stuff. Now she takes pride in driving for hundreds and thousands of miles without even seeing slowdowns or tragedies or anything. In other words, there are no near misses when you are consistently in the vortex, you see. In the early days, Jerry and Esther, when they were first together, before they had consciously met us, Esther had meditated us into her experience, and Jerry had summoned us into his experience. They were living in Phoenix, and not happily so. It was hot, and the freeways were not well constructed, and there was a lot of traffic. And Esther wanted to be in San Diego, and Jerry made the mistake of taking her there once, and so they were driving back and forth from Phoenix to San Diego quite often. And one night, it was in the middle of the summer, they were coming back at midnight because they were driving in the dark in order to avoid the heat of the desert. And as they came into the city that they had already well established was not a pleasant place to drive, of course, the most not pleasant things were what they always rendezvoused with. If there was a traffic jam to be had, they would feel the inspiration to go put themselves right in the middle of it. In other words, because you always get what's active in your vibration. In other words, you can't reason your way around a traffic jam when the traffic jam is the most active part of your vibration relative to this subject. And so they were always right in the middle of the worst part of the traffic, always. They thought the whole city was like that. They still would proclaim that to be the case, but it wasn't. It was just a traffic jam that just followed them around. So one night they are driving into the city, and here, even though it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, the traffic was all but standing still. And because the traffic department had narrowed it down to just one almost lane. And there were barricades everywhere, and so they were just creeping along. And after the long drive through the night, they were eager to get to their home, and Esther was complaining about it. And in those days, still a little bit today, but she's understanding that she always receives more of what she wants when she talks about what she wants. But in those days, she was pleading a very negative case. So she was making a list of all of the reasons that no one in their right mind should live here. And Jerry was doing his best to separate himself by not listening, by singing, by playing happy music, and the more he ignored her, the louder she got. It was just slightly short of taking him by the collar and saying, listen to me, this is not where I want to live. And so in a moment of Esther's most carefully chosen words to try to convince her very dense husband of the error of his choice, someone threw a boulder off of the overpass, and it struck the side of their car, the side where Esther was sitting, and it made a very big impact. And when they stopped, the rock had almost come into the car. The impetus of it was so strong. And they commented if it had been just a few inches higher, it would have come right through the windshield and Esther would have been toast. And later, as they told the story to us, we said, oh, she wasn't that bad. She wasn't that resistant. She wasn't in that place of resistance. But everything always matches what you're getting. So the crescendo that Esther had just spoken right before the impact, it was something like, I hate this. We will leave some words out. City. And as if to punctuate her sentence with an exclamation mark, the rock hit the car in that moment. If there was ever a universal response to an attitude, they had to have understood that that's what that was. Now, what you're talking about is far less. We're just dramatizing this in order to get all of your attention. We want you to understand that you do have control of your own experience. And there is a temptation to look into the world and to observe into the world and to let what you're observing set the tone of your vibration. But when you let what you're observing set the tone of your vibration, what then really happens is the vibration sets the tone of what you begin to observe. So you say, did I create it, or was it coming and therefore I saw it? I psychically sensed that it was coming. Was it an intuitive awareness of something that was coming? And we say, accept with us, please, that 100% of anything that you see, that you hear, that you observe, that you experience, or that impacts you in any way, accept that 100% of it is your creation. 100% of it. And when you accept that, then you can decide what parts of it you want to experience and what parts of it that you don't want to experience. And then you find yourself tuning your thoughts, tuning your conversations to the parts that feel the best to you. And then more and more, the universe just shows you more and more who you are. And the thing that's interesting about this, and this is the part that we so want this environment to awaken within all of you, is that your creation, the life that you're living in any moment in time, is somewhere on the continuum from what contrast has caused you to really be and who you're letting yourself be right now. And so the way we want you to look at this is that in this vortex is the most magnificent set of circumstances and events that you have ever or could ever imagine. In other words, life at its very best, beyond verbal description, is what is in this vibrational reality, in this vortex of creation that you've already set into motion. And everything that you're living, traffic jams, traffic flowing, fun with friends, not fun with friends, everything that you're experiencing is about the relationship between what's really going on here and who you are. In other words, there is not a life out there, a world creation that is being lived, and you are participating in a sort of general or non-committal way within it. Everyone, every single person that you know, everyone is creating within this framework of who they have really become and who they're letting themselves be. So what happens is, the more deliberately you apply your thoughts, and the more you get out there in a non-guarded way and live life, the more you allow yourself to have exposure to an experience like that. In other words, what a great experience that is, where you acknowledge that under all conditions that you do very well, and under all conditions that you have attracted a driver. In other words, if you had been behind that, you could have been really caught up in a traffic jam. If you've been ahead of it, you would have missed it altogether, and maybe missing it altogether seems like a better creation than having observed it in some way. It was certainly a better creation to whiz through by the skin of your teeth than to become impacted in it in some way.